got a layer of hoof over the problem. We need to take that away, and then we can thoroughly clean the issue that's underneath that. Now, another question I get is, of course, on this claw or this cow, we've got a problem on this claw. But what if there was problems on both claws? Now, for those of you that have watched this channel for a long time, you probably know what's going to happen coming up here. We're going to trim this area away, and then we're going to put a rubber block on that other claw to take the weight off of this one, right? But if there's problems on both claws, can you still do that? Now you can. If you were to fashion a block in certain ways, you can do that. I do not choose to do that in most instances. And the reason is because blocks are used to isolate weight, to put weight in certain areas. And what I want to do, I don't want to isolate weight or put weight, a lot of weight in particular areas. What I want to do is distribute that weight evenly on a cow that's got problems on both claws, because I don't want too much weight on one particular claw. I want them to be able to heal. So my solution in those cases is no blocks. We're going to leave this cow be just as she normally would, and I'm going to move this cow, or have the farmer move this cow, to a bedded pen with lots of soft bedding so that we're not putting any excess pressure on those particular areas. Now, of course, I'm going to wrap it up, try to keep those areas clean for a short period of time while that's happening, but I'm not going to use blocks to transfer weight and put it in different areas. I want that cow to be as comfortable and as stable on that foot as she can possibly be. Can you see here? There's a small stone in here. That's another question we get a lot, or another misconception that we have, is that rocks cause a lot of problems in cows' feet. However, that's really not the case. Rocks, of course, end up being in those areas, but they're in those areas because the claw itself has something defective wrong with it. For instance, in this case, that rock was able to get in that cut in the bottom of that sole, and that is how that rock was actually there. The rock didn't cause that cut, but that rock was able to find its way in there because of that. Same thing with white lines. That white line defect is actually a crack in that white line of that foot, or where that outside wall meets that sole, and it's that area that rock is able to get into. Now, that's not to say that rocks can't cause problems, but generally that's not the case. Another common question: is this process painful for the cow? Now, the trimming part, this trimming of the hoof that I'm doing right now, that is not painful. That is just like trimming our fingernails. Now, that area of discomfort, that area in the middle there, that, of course, is uncomfortable. That's why she was holding this foot up. So there is discomfort in this claw, but the actual trimming part, if done carefully, is not uncomfortable. I'm sure it doesn't feel great, but like anything else, we need to remove that area to get this to heal. So we just need to do it in a way that's not going to touch anything sensitive in that claw. We're working around the edges. We're removing the hard horn material, which, like I said, is much like our fingernails. We stay away from those sensitive areas as best we can. Now, when it comes to knowing how much of this to remove, we're removing the detached area from around the areas of corium disturbance. It's pretty obvious to see where that disturbance is on this particular claw. So what I'm doing is removing any of the loose horn from around that, just to keep that horn from abrading that particular area. Now, in nature, there would be no one to take this hoof away. So what is happening is that sole is lifting away naturally from that. That's how the cow would normally take care of this on her own. The sole that I'm removing now, over time, would fall away, and that would allow that problem to resolve and for a new sole to grow in its place. However, that takes much longer than we have, or that we want to have this cow to deal with this. We want to take care of this as soon as possible for her benefit, and that's why we trim this. Within a month, this horn will all completely replace. That's another common question. How long does this take to resolve, or how long for this sole to replace itself. Solar horn grows at approximately 1/4 of an inch per month. So within a month, we'll have about 1/4 of an inch of sole back on this claw, and that is enough for a cow to bear weight. Of course, there's not enough there now, and that's why I'm going to put this rubber block on this other claw. That's going to elevate the claw that we're working on off the ground, keep her from walking on that during that time period. That's going to allow that sole to grow and become the correct thickness. What I'm doing here, I'm just going to use this grinder to thin this sole out a little bit more because I've got a little bit more to remove here. The wheel that's on this grinder is a cutting wheel, non-abrasive, so there's no heat created when I'm trimming that claw. It's got some carbides on there that just gently shaves the hoof away as I'm trimming. The knives that I'm using now, those are specifically designed hoof knives, and they've got a hook on the end of that. You can see I'm using right now. That hook is there to help lift that horn away as I cut. That allows me to make sure that I'm not cutting too deeply, and that helps me lift that horn away as I make that cut. That spray that you see me use, no, that is not Windex. Ha ha. That is chlorhexidine. Chlorhexidine is an antiseptic, and it's used to help clean these areas. I use it to irrigate the areas, as well as an antiseptic to kill any of the bacteria that might be on this particular area. Salicylic acid powder, that's what I'm adding now. That serves several functions. Not only is it going to help kill some bacteria and exfoliate any of that dead material from that area, but it's also going to provide a little bit of pain relief as well. When I began working on this hoof, it was obvious I was dealing with rocks, but I couldn't imagine just how many rocks were below the surface. Welcome back to Nate the Hoof Guy. Once one rock makes its way into the white line, it's easy for others to follow, and they continue to work their way underneath that sole until they have underrun it. That's what's happened here. I'm going to use my grinder here to give us a bigger access point to get all of these rocks out of there. Well, there's two, but there's many more to come. Every time I think I've got it flushed out, more rocks will reveal themselves. As I continue to trim, I can feel more coming in contact with my knife blade. And once again, it's another sizable rock. Maybe this rinse will finally do it, but I think we all know that is not the case. At this point, I was starting to feel like I was never going to get to the end of them. Now, I'll bet you're thinking to yourself, those rocks have got to be doing a number on those hoof knives. And they do, but there's really no way around that, and that's why I carry multiple knives with me each day, dealing with rocks and sand and things like that. They're going to get dull, just switch those knives up and move on. Now, even though this hoof was absolutely packed full of rocks, they really weren't the problem here. Likely what had happened is there was a white line issue back some time, and these rocks were able to find that defect and work their way all the way in there. Really, for the most part, this hoof is sound. There is a new layer of hoof horn there. There was just one small area of openness, so we did put a block on that other claw, and then we cleaned this area out really well and treated that one small little area with some salicylic acid and gave her a wrap, and that was going to be it. Just a little few touch-up trims here is all we have left to do, and this girl is going to feel a whole lot more comfortable. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you all on the next one.